Hey, this is Scott Tucker, author of Veteran Wealth Secrets and founder of US Vet Wealth, and I'm stepping into the spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network.
You're listening to Spotlight, the podcast that fosters connections with veterans and military spouses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Welcome, everybody. This is your host, Bob Louthen. Pleased to have as my guest today, Scott Tucker. He's a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, class of 2002, an author, a veteran, and a friend I met probably about a year and a half ago now. Scott, welcome to the
Yeah.
program. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks, Bob. It's great to be here. I'm glad you're doing this. Ever since we met, I really liked the unique ideas kind of you were having in the veteran entrepreneur space, and it's good to reconnect.
It is. It is. So I want to go back and start with kind of early history. I typically do that with my guest, and I'm throwing you the first curveball of the interview. You were a lax bro in high school, right? Actually, I love lacrosse. Tell us a little bit about high school, what position you played, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you might see this football helmet back here. My dad was actually a football coach at Ohio State, and so I grew up in the football world. He was defensive coordinator, ended up leaving and going to a small town called Worcester in northeastern Ohio, in Amish country. That's where he had gone to college. He wanted to go coach at his alma mater, and I wasn't any good at any sports. I just wasn't. My dad's a football coach, and I wasn't making the basketball team or anything like that. And somehow in the middle of Amish country, two guys from New Jersey figured out that they had gone to the same high school, were both all-American lacrosse players like back in the 70s, and they decided to start a club in my little town. And that was probably when I was a kid, but I just started playing in middle school. And by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was a starting on varsity. Was all state.
What position did you play?
I played defense. I was a long stick. I was kind of one of those long sticks that was more focused on getting the ball up on offense versus being an awesome defender. I was kind of really fast, and I would score goals and stuff like that. It was really fun.
So all three of our sons played lacrosse. They sort of found their niche as the that defensive midi, and they were good at getting the ball, running it up and clearing it and handing it off to somebody that knew how to score. And they were pretty fast too. So just one of my favorite sports, football and lacrosse. I could do that back to back for long periods of time. So
yeah. They
anyway,
complement each other.
so how'd you end up getting attracted to go to West Point?
Well, I was always the kid in high school that was wearing camouflage pants to school. I just had been, kind of interested in the Civil War, a little Civil War buff as a kid. I was always, looking through my parents' Encyclopedia Britannica and just reading about all these things. And gosh, every other general there was this West Point grad, and they always had this mythical story
on
about
both sides of the fight, right?
Right. It's like roommates fighting against each other and stuff like that. And it seems like a movie. You don't understand how kind of crazy that war, or any war, really is. But it just kind of made me interested in it. And when I got into, I never really thought, like, since a young kid, I want to go to West Point. But as you hit sophomore, junior year in high school, you start looking at colleges. I just thought, well, if, I kind of always thought about joining the Army. So if I'm going to go to the Army, I might as well go to West Point. And kind of luckily, because it's not like I was like top of my class. I was doing pretty good, but I didn't think of myself as being smart enough for this kind of institution. But luckily, my high school physics teacher, a Vietnam veteran, had gone to West Point, was a 66 grad, I believe. And as I kind of hinted at it to him, he just said, "No, you're going." And he kind of helped me through the path. And once you get that letter in the mail, I was like, well, I can't say no, and I can't quit once you start. So that's kind of how it came about.
What was it like being at West Point when 9/11 happened?
I talk about this a lot because, I was 2002 grad. So follow my senior year was 9/11 2001, and before that, we didn't think there was going to be any new wars. I mean, there had been Kosovo and Bosnia, but no cadets had combat patches. I think there was maybe one in the whole Corps while I was there. And I remember when the Black Hawk Down guys came and spoke to us, and that was just like, oh my God, these guys, this is crazy. Like, this will never happen again. And then sure enough, that morning on a Tuesday, I think we were all pretty confused, because I remember specifically, I was a language major. So I was in a linguistics class in the foreign language department, and the only TV channel they had was a French TV channel. So we watched the second tower in the Pentagon get hit in French. And then my next class was nuclear engineering. And we went in, and the teacher let us watch it for a couple minutes, and then he turned it off and he says, if we don't learn physics, the terrorists win. And so that's pretty much epitomizes West Point.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Right.
How about that? So you get out of West Point. Talk a little bit about your time in the Army. Then we'll drill down to your transition, which is where we're going to really kind of get into the meat of what you're doing.
Right. Well, the main thing for me is I really wanted to be into the foreign affairs type of stuff. And I recognized the way we get to choose our duty stations is based on your rank, and it's also based on your rank within the various service branch you choose. So after 9/11, all the guys who were kind of, let's call them nerdy, and they weren't so gung-ho, they weren't going to choose infantry, so they all choose armor, which is what I really wanted to be, a tanker, an armor guy. And so all of a sudden, I was going to be much lower in the ranking, because all those smart kids were going to go combat arms now. And I recognized, well, if I want to get to Germany, I need to find another way to do it. Well, air defense was the way. So I was short range air defense. I got to follow around the infantry and the armor, but we never really did that. I got to Germany. I got deployed for OIF II. We were set up as a force protection battalion, and I was in Tikrit, Iraq for a year. And then afterwards, when we got back to Germany, they disbanded short range air defense. And so I was kind of in limbo, but I had to stay in Germany for a little longer. And I managed to get assigned as the ground liaison officer to the 52nd Fighter Wing. So I was the only Army guy on an Air Force base with 3 fighter wings. And so that was really cool. We always joke around the chair force and stuff like that, but I was just like fascinated by how good they were at what they do. And as we learned in years to come, how much they helped the Army guys on the ground with close air support. So that was fun. And then I saw the completely other side of the military when, as a young 27-year-old Army captain, I got assigned to headquarters UCOM in Stuttgart. And now I'm in Pentagon minor, and just seeing all these senior officers just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to make themselves look important so they can maybe get promoted, so they don't have to make their own decision about transition. And that was a huge epiphany for me, because I was so fearful, like most of these high-ranking individuals. And then when it's just Bob and Joe, and really you see how scared they are, and how honestly they're just trying to make other people's lives miserable to seem important. I don't know. There was just too much bad leadership I saw, and recognized, oh, I could do this. I could just hang out for 20 years, get my pension, not stand out. And so it really made me realize I don't want to work for anybody else anymore. I don't know what that means at all. I had read, I think, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss around the same time, and started to recognize that there's a different way than what I've been told.
You tell a story in your book about right after you transition, it makes for good theater, I guess. It involves a girl, but you learned a lot in the initial job that you had. Would you share a little bit of that story from your book?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I even ended up in Stuttgart is I was on a train one day and ended up sitting next to a German opera singer. So we started dating, fell in love. I ended up, getting that job in Stuttgart where she was living, moved in together. I bought a condo. I I intentionally realized I was going to be in Germany for maybe the rest of my life, and therefore be, stay not seeing my family, my parents as much. And so that was also part of the reason, to think about getting out and trying to stay in Germany, is I realized there's no opera singing at Fort Bragg. So I gotta, gotta get out and stay here and try to figure something out. And I didn't want to stay in the UCOM system as a contractor or a federal employee. So I had basically just taken a lot of risk for what I thought at the time was for her. I was trying to support her mission and her dream, which was clearly defined. And so, well, that sounds easy. Just follow orders and keep doing the same thing. It seemed easier until I realized I wasn't prioritizing myself or my needs. I thought I was trying to be greedy, but after a few years, and I also talk about this in my book, I just was like, I had the West Point, I went to war, I'm over in Germany, I'm doing all these cool things or making money. I thought there'd be more. I don't know. I don't want to be like rich or whatever, be a Wall Street investment banker, but I just thought there'd be something else. And I kind of felt a little bit unrewarded. And, and then especially after the opera singer realized, being a soprano was far more important than dragging me along, I just got kind of stuck over there and realized, hey, I don't know what it is, but if I want a reward, I got to go figure it out myself.
So now I want to go back and talk a little bit about some of the things that you think the military bakes into us, and a lot of positive things that we get out of being in the service, the disciplines and the personal accountability and all those good things that we talk about as veterans. But you have a very interesting perspective about the mindset that the military sort of sends it bakes into us about our transition and what's the right way to line up your life. And we're going to go down this path, and I want to talk about the difference between being rich and being wealthy and a lot of the concepts that you've got around that. But you say in your book that the Army or the military kind of misleads us into thinking some things are the right way to do things. And what I love about your book is that you actually debunk a lot of this stuff, and it's a really interesting perspective. So let's drill down on some of that. Can you take me down that thought process?
Well, it all starts with what happens the day we sign up to serve our country. We give up. We give an oath. We basically sign up our whole human existence over to the government willingly. We give up our liberty. What's on my shirt here, and that's fine. We make that choice consciously. Maybe we're doing it because we love the idea of serving. Maybe we're doing it to pay off loans, debts, just need a job. I don't know, but that's what we sign up for.
Most of us have the higher calling, right?
Yeah, I hope so, but there's nothing wrong with it if it's a way to get ahead. I mean, my wife's father was a native Filipino, and that was a way to get to America, a way to get ahead by joining the American Navy. So, but either way, it's especially after 20 years of almost 20 years of perpetual war and constant deployments, and everything's just spun up. There's just been distractions, and then of course, we think about, the poor veterans after all this, what they're going through. We got to do more for them and take care of them. And so as we're coming at transition, it's almost like an out processing center. Go here, do this, get your job, go to the job. I mean, do your resume, go to the job fair, do mock interviews, and therefore go get that salary that translate. You turn wrenches in the military, therefore you turn wrenches on the civilian world. It's like, says who? This actual moment, I mean, the words, the language, like I said, I was a language guy. Military transition process. How negative is that? It sounds like we're fixing a problem. Like, at first, we're not even talking about the individual. Military, that's a word that talks about the whole. Transition is about change and uncertainty. Process is, well, if you check the boxes, therefore things will work out. And it doesn't work that way. It's your individual opportunity as an individual veteran. That's what I feel we miss by kind of saying, all right, as long as we put every veteran or every transitioning military through this course, or give them all these extra benefits, it'll work out. Well, that might work on some sort of spreadsheet or PowerPoint slide, but do they go back and ask those guys 5, 10 years later, are they happy? Did they bother to think about what they truly wanted, or do they just have to replace a paycheck because we weren't incentivized really to save money on active duty? Some do, but the numbers aren't really that good. And more specifically, when we're talking about the financial aspect of the transition, we're trying to replace that paycheck instead of thinking of it as like, oh, what if I have assets so I can use this moment to create new opportunity to get more of my freedom back, to become autonomous and live the way that I want to live. And because at the end of the day, it's the military's job to win our nation's wars. It's not the military's job to get everybody a job. Should they help? Should they offer resources? Absolutely. Is any of this bad? No, but it is bad when the individual just kind of goes through the motions, forgets that they're responsible. You are 100% responsible. You are no longer government issue. As we always joke about you, if you get a suntan, you owe the government penalty, right?
Right.
That's not the case anymore. And unless you take responsibility, if we're just going to sit around saying, oh, I deserve more benefits, or I should have gotten this, or they didn't understand me just because I'm a veteran, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to build a personal brand and make it about you so people can truly understand the unique value that you bring?
You've got some great analysis in your book, and I'm just devouring it right now. But um, as an example, I had not thought about this quite this way. But there's a great incentive for people to stay in the military to earn the pension. Do your 20 and get out. And there are programs that you can contribute into in the military. Their life insurance policies, all of these things, and you couch them in a different way to get people to think about them as an investment. One of the things that I found most fascinating, and it's got me thinking hard, is because we've got active duty people that are considering staying in and doing the 20. You talk about the opportunity cost of not getting out and creating wealth outside of the military. Can you touch on that conceptually for me?
Yeah, and I think I see this. It's like once somebody makes their 10 years, they feel like they need
might
to
as well do 20.
Might as well do the 20. And yet, how often do I meet guys at the 15, 17-year mark, and they're just exhausted, and they're having trouble at home, or just so many of the issues that they haven't even contemplated thinking about what they want to do after the military. They're just trying to say, how do I get myself through these next few years so I can get that pension? Then I'll worry about that. It's like, dude, then you're setting yourself up for a completely another problem that you're not aware of. And you're being forced to quickly kind of take the first job that pays something similar so you can feel like, okay, I can take a breath right now. And I don't advocate, hey, get out early if you're not happy. It's like, yeah, the pension's a pretty darn good asset. Might want to do that 20, but it's definitely those folks that are just like, oh, let's see if I can get promoted. Then I'll do another 3 years, another 6 years. And is that increase in the pension amount really equate to what you could create on the outside in the modern world? I mean, frankly, it doesn't even have to be about whether you stay in or get out. There's so many active duty military families, whether it's through the spouse or through the service member, that are doing things like real estate investments, starting speaking careers, doing website design. You can also build wealth while you're on active duty. And then if you're making more money than on the outside than you are on active duty, and you're at year 15 and you're like, you know what, I'm good. You can at least have that decision and choice to make versus I'll think about that when I get out. And that's, there's no right answer there, because unfortunately we don't control our time on active duty. But you'd be surprised, what you can get done in your little bit of free time. I mean, how much are we talking about? How many times do we always talk about hurry up and wait? Well, while you're waiting, are you listening to podcasts? Are you learning about this new world? Are you using the apps on your iPhone to see if there's other ways to create income? Or are you literally just sitting there, waiting until the weekend?
Yeah. You also touch on the survey conducted by Blue Star families, or I guess Blue Star Moms, maybe. I'm not sure which one it
Blue
is.
Star families, yeah.
And some interesting stuff comes out of that, and you've woven that into your narrative, about the things that are stressing people out, the things that people are worried about. Can you share a few of those observations?
Well, it's always ends up having to do about money. And for active duty, it seems like there's never enough of it. And it's like, really? I mean, if we looked at the actual, benefits we get and what the values of those are, it's like if you're financially struggling, and this goes for all ranks, because I've seen broke colonels and E4s doing pretty well, so it's all about lifestyle choice and design. If you want to make more money in the military, what needs to happen. You need to get promoted. So if you're enlisted, how do you become an officer or warrant? That's more money. We didn't design the system, but that's how we know it works. But this also tends to happen, at the transition moment, when people start to actually look at how their benefits work and realize that while you're on active duty, the only cost of insurance is $25 a month for that SGLI. And then all of a sudden in retirement, if you're going to consider paying for veterans group life insurance or the survivor benefit plan, that cost of insurance goes from $300 a year to maybe $3,000 a year.
Mm.
And this is coming directly out of your pension, which is half what your active duty pay was going to be. So of course people are stressed out financially when they haven't, already lined up their job. They're told to start looking for a job because the system is you get hired by the recruiters and the job fairs at the 3-month mark. That's when you start looking. Well, how stressful is that? You got 3 months to actually really figure it
Replace all
out.
your
Yeah.
income. Yeah.
So, these, and of course, most shuffle through it and therefore find something and, end up in that next stage of life. But those financial stressors never go away when you're on a fixed income. There's just never going to be enough. There's always going to be another problem. And, to get full financial control where you control the source of your income at some point is, the real opportunity. And that's what makes the pension great, is that's your asset. As the individual, it's not that you're getting a few $1,000s a month from the pension. It's that those 20 years of service have created an asset which pays you that that stipend. Like, what would you have to have saved? Guys are getting out at age 40, 45. What would you have to have saved in the bank at age 45
To throw off that
to
money.
put it?
Right.
It could be millions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's the asset you created for yourself. So, what else could you do to add on to that? That doesn't mean just working for somebody else.
That's right. So let's beat a little bit of a dead horse here for a minute. The TAP program within the military, they just recently modified it and changed some of the process. I'm not sure whether you've been keeping up with that per se, but I got a briefing on it not too long ago, probably back in the November time frame. It's been almost a year, but they had they had changed a lot of the things, and I got to the end of the briefing and I raised a question, and it was, how much input did you get from the private sector in the design of this program? And the answer was, we didn't, you know.
Wow.
And uh, and and I so my takeaway from that was, they had created this check the box program. Well, let's make sure that, we've covered our end, that we've gotten this, transitioning E4 has done these various things. So we've checked our box and covered our ass. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality is it's a pretty novel concept to check with the customer about the product that you're putting out onto the market. And I still think that program's got a long way to go. You have a mission, I think, in this book of helping people look at things differently and take a different approach to transition. It's an interesting part. One part of your book's about yourself. You know, uh, you're supposed to go buy a suit and update your resume, and you did all the things you were supposed to do, and then discovered that, hey, it's not what it's cracked up to be. Let's tease people with some of the advice that you've got in the book, for that transitioning, whether it's an officer with, you know, or enlisted, whether they've been in 3 years or 20. What are some of the little teasers from the book that you'd like to share as the author?
Well, I think, again, getting back to that transition opportunity or the individual, liberty mindset, is that right now there's never been a better time in all of recorded human history than to be a veteran in the United States of America in the internet age. Like, this is fascinating that most people can't even comprehend it. And the best place to test it and play around with it, I mean, frankly, I whether you're talking about stocks, bonds, gold, Bitcoin, whatever, the best wealth creation tool ever invented is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is this powerful personal branding and networking tool. It's a networking event where you can show up as whoever you want to be 24/7 on any topic, anywhere in the world. It's just fascinating. And less than 1% of LinkedIn users are actually using it intentionally. And so if we look at the numbers of that, the average CEO level person, kind of the person you really want to be connected with if you're trying to move ahead, right? The idea is surround yourself with people you want to be like, people that have already gone ahead of you, be successful. Well, the average amount of those people on LinkedIn are only connected to about 900 or so people. And so if you can get connected with them, which is pretty easy, hey, if you're a veteran, you look professional, most people are going to say, hey, yeah, let's connect. Now, if you're one of the 1% using it intentionally and actually posting and adding value on LinkedIn, then you're one of 10 people showing up on that person's feed on a regular basis. They can actually really get to know you by doing that. And you can scale it and compound it. And all of a sudden you're tapping into people working in fields that you never would have contemplated, and meet them, you hear about it. You can just network so much faster, and then maybe even create a bit of a business for yourself. Like, at the end of the day, why not treat ourselves like a business? Like, let's stop calling ourselves employees. We are income producing entities. If we choose to sign a contract to be an employee for someone for a while, fine. But why does that have to define our further career? Like, it's like, oh, now I changed my job description on LinkedIn and added accomplishments. How does that help anybody? LinkedIn can be used as a value producing tool. Give as much as you want, share, connect people, always be out there, because what if all of a sudden another opportunity shows up? When you're in the military, a lot of times you can't grasp opportunities. You can't see them, nor can you act on them. But when you're not in anymore, you have a full responsibility. I mean, you have full autonomy to make a choice. It's always a choice. I got this job, I got to be at work. That's still a choice. If an opportunity shows up, then you can grasp it. I've never seen anything like LinkedIn. It could be your YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, email, speaking event, all in one thing.
Tell me about the 30-day LinkedIn challenge. You have this program. How does that work?
Yeah, I call my LinkedIn Liberty thing. I took around 30 days. I don't know if it was 30 days exactly, but I just like, all right, all these people come to me. I don't know where to start. I don't know I get it. You probably haven't bothered to read books on personal branding and what that really means. And the idea of networking was just like kind of go to a happy hour event where everybody sits around awkwardly and passes out business cards. Like, that's helpful. So I just said, okay, well, given what I've learned, and I taught myself, this is how I taught myself LinkedIn. I'd read a book, I'd learn a couple things, I'd implement it on Monday, and then I'd see results on Tuesday. I'd take a course on a weekend and implement it on Monday, implement what I learned on Monday, start seeing results on Tuesday. I just kept on building on this. And it's not that hard. Most of this information is available for free, but sometimes when you pay for stuff, maybe there's a little more value there. I don't know why veterans think everything free is good. Free stuff is usually cheap. So when you actually invest some of your capital into yourself, there's new opportunities. So that's what I want to do. I was like, all right, you guys, we want to do something for free. I just thought, well, what if I could start over knowing what I know now. And so I just took a number of days and made some videos just explaining here's what I would do if I was starting from scratch to kind of build up my network on LinkedIn. And at the end of 30 days, I was connected with hundreds of people, had a bunch of people reaching out to me. And I started a whole new profile was kind of the idea. But it's like anybody can do this. You can learn it extremely quickly. Like, imagine that. How much value could you create? How much higher income could you make doing a series of intense self-directed? Listen, the guys they bring around to the transition courses, that the way they teach LinkedIn, they're just trying to get you to put your resume onto LinkedIn to make it easier for the recruiters.
It's like making a brochure out of your website,
right,
instead of making it work for you.
Yeah. And so unfortunately, some of these guys will then yell at everybody, well, you're not doing your headline right. You're not doing your thing right. It's like, there are no rules. Stop thinking that we need to follow orders as a veteran and that some other veteran has done it all right. Like, at the end of the day, we got to find our own way to do it. LinkedIn is a testing mechanism. Okay. So, be free with it, and you can do some pretty cool things.
Scott, there's some people that I think have kind of cracked the algorithms on LinkedIn, and I'm a person that every now and then I think the blind squirrel finds the nut, and I'm putting a lot of content out there like this, and in some cases I'll get 15,000 views and 2 or 3% engagement, comments and stuff like that, and then the next one will go out and crickets, right? And I'm curious if in your efforts, if you've kind of cracked the code, because the one thing that concerns me the most about social media is that we're building our house on rented land, so to speak.
Yeah.
Facebook, the algorithms and so forth. I mean, they can cut you and me off, tomorrow because we said something they didn't like. So what's your thoughts on that concern?
Well, that's a great point. And I'm actually kind of a good example of that, because this year I haven't really been using LinkedIn that much. I was writing a book. I was getting my website up. I was learning search engine optimization, starting a YouTube channel. Like, again, LinkedIn was my testing ground. I built some audience. I got a ton of feedback. And now it's like, all right, well, I need to develop my own real estate here, so I don't have a risk like that. I still use it, still stay active, and I'm planning on getting more active again once I knock out some of these other things. But that's the idea, is if you can take a good year, 18 months and get hot and heavy with it, you're going to see tremendous results and see where it goes. I think a lot of people just stay on LinkedIn because they get good at it and they see a whole bunch of likes and comments and engagement. That's nice if your numbers are big, but does it result in what you want? So it's not necessarily about the numbers. It's
what are the metrics that you use to measure your performance on LinkedIn or another social channel?
That's a tough one, because I used to think it was about like how many connections I had or how many likes or comments. I think at the end of the day, the one I like is when I'm being active, I could see how many people are viewing my profile, because that's where I tell people, hey, what I'm all about.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm seeing an increase there, that means, hey, my activity level is good enough. Remember, activity, there's multiple different levels of activity on LinkedIn. You can do some posting and make sure it's not look at me. It's more about adding value, engaging on other people's posts, showing them that you care. They're going to remember that. They're going to see that. And getting into as Gary Vee says, get in the DMs, direct message people. Like that's the whole point. It's a networking event. You got to walk up, say, hey, I'm Scott. What do what's up? What do you do? And a combination of those things, obviously trying to connect with new people, it all kind of just starts to add up. And they change the algorithm. So that's why we don't want to get stuck there, because then we get confused. And it's like, I just made this post. It's about a nonprofit and nobody liked it. Like, why not, LinkedIn? Like, you should do this better for me because I'm promoting nonprofits. Like, LinkedIn doesn't care. they might say they have a bunch of hired veterans and stuff, but they got an agenda as well. So they're going to be shifting, just like Facebook did, just like Google did. All these things shift dramatically. And so for right now, LinkedIn offers a ton of organic reach. But at some point, I mean, at the end of the day, they're there for recruiters. And that's how they make their money. They're getting there where they want to shift to advertising money. So at some point, this free organic reach, this way of getting your name out there, isn't going to be quite as easy anymore. I don't know when that's going to happen. Hopefully it's not quick and more veterans could have a chance to use it. But it's hard to say.
Let's touch on one more topic in the last few minutes that we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, in a more analog way, I picked up this book called "What Color Is Your Parachute" when I was
Yeah.
making a transition job wise, and in the back of that book, for the people that aren't familiar with it, there's a great sort of self study approach to figuring things out, and for me, it was an epiphany. It led me to change careers, and I found my passion and my happiness and all of that kind of stuff. I had a classmate of mine from BMI transitioning out of the military. He had done his 20, and he kind of told me at a reunion, I'm thinking about, I'm just going to take the civilian equivalent of my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of roll over and doing the same thing. And I handed him a copy of the book, and he went through the exercise and took a completely different spin once he discovered it. And he's happier. He looks younger. He's had a fabulous, very successful career in an entirely different space where he's in sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But talk a little bit about finding your passion. What's your 10 cents worth on that? Because you talk a lot about discovering what you really want to do in the things that you write.
Yeah, and that's part of choosing to take your liberty back when you have the opportunity after the military. And if you think about going to one of those transition classes or some nonprofit course where they're helping people get out of the military, and everybody's sitting in a room, they show up in a suit, and we're all still looking the exact same, resumes all still look the exact same. If you were to ask that group of career military, a bunch of grizzled sergeants and old officers, whatever, and you said, how many of you are artists? How many are going to raise their hand? Maybe somebody plays a guitar. I don't know. But if we go into a kindergarten classroom and you say, how many of you are artists? Everybody raises their hands, right? We were all creative once. We were all able to produce value or wanted to. We had all these ideas as a kid. And, any psychologist you talk to, we always talk about, think about what happened in your childhood, what happened in your childhood. So I just like to say, give yourself permission to remember who you are. And it doesn't always have to have anything to do with what you did in the military. It could just happen to be that you were in the military once. Like I have friends who are podcasters and they were Marines and they barely mention that. It's not that they're not proud of it or whatever. It's just not the theme of their life anymore. And it's like, why can't we all have permission to go, find, who we are and really, doing those personality tests. I think sometimes those can get, many of them kind of seem very militaristic. Oh, you're HPQA, GA, whatever. And so therefore this is it. I found that self-authoring is a much better way to go. And this is a way of basically just kind of rewriting your story. You're writing your past in a series of epics, like just go into, all right, what happened in my childhood that was, really, what was the highs, what was the lows? What about, maybe in college and in the military? And then you start writing about like what's going on right now. And then you just start freeing your mind up to start thinking, yeah, this is actually what I want to be doing in the future. And that's the work. Like at the end of that, this is what I did. I ended up with a book that I published on Amazon, but I was really writing just for myself. I really was writing for myself the day I graduated West Point. I was like, all the stuff I can't believe nobody taught us. And rather than write a resume, what's brought me more value? Going through that exercise, because not only at the end of the day did I write out what I really was feeling and thinking and wanted, I also know how to write and publish a book on Amazon. I've actually got 3 coming out right now. I got the main one, but I got a couple of other ebooks that are more specific on other topics because I know the formula, and it's pretty easy. I mean, at the end of the day, it's work, but when you put the work in, it's better than just going through the process and trying to see, does my resume check the boxes? Well, if it's all checking the boxes, that means it looks like everybody else. If your interview style, if the way you dress is like everybody else, you're just a commodity now. Now is an opportunity to truly become your independent self again. And I've never heard of or experienced a better way to do it than to finally start writing it down.
Awesome stuff. Scott, I want to put all the links to you to how to get in touch with you, but uh, how do folks get in touch with you, and give a little shout out for your own podcast here?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously LinkedIn, Scott R. Tucker on LinkedIn is a great place to reach us. If you want to get an advanced copy of my book, veteranwealthsecrets.com, and you can read all more about what I'm doing at usvetwealth.com, and our podcast, mostly YouTube channel, also has a podcast, Veteran Wealth Secrets. You can just search that on YouTube, and we're about to be launching more and more content as we shift really from the LinkedIn brand over onto YouTube. So it'd be great to have people on there.
Awesome stuff. So we'll put links to all of these things on the show notes. Scott Tucker, thank you so much for being our guest today and stepping into the spotlight.
No, thank you, Bob. It was fun.
So we've been talking with Scott Tucker, 2002 grad from West Point, here on the Spotlight today. I'd encourage you to reach out and get that book, his book, and start reading about veteran wealth secrets. As I said, I'm about halfway through the book, and I just find it fascinating. The Spotlight shines on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can find us on your favorite podcast channel, and just like Scott, we're starting to post these things, so this will be available on our YouTube channel. Scott, Bravo Zulu to you, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by Veteran Crowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at veterancrowdnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.